takeaways every week. And yeah.
John Walton.
Oh, I'm here just for the same reasons that have been expressed. I mean, this is working at home and being somewhat locked in. This is the biggest social interaction I think I have in the week. A lot of good ideas. But speaking of being locked down, I do have a unique opportunity. I just need to share very quickly. I'll be leaving a week from Monday for Los Angeles. The Wisconsin State Department of Corrections has asked us to provide our curriculum that we use for prison ministries on video. So I'll be going out to shoot some, not real creative, it's curriculum video, but it's an opportunity to get materials back into the prison when we can't go in ourselves. So all of you know that I'm involved in prison ministry. But this is huge for us because their Department of Corrections is asking us. When they first started out, they said, no, we don't want any of this. Now, after several months, they're saying, please give us material. Guys need something. We need help. So
good.
We'll be doing some of our curriculum on video and hope that we can get it out to other states. So that's just the side part. But again, the guys, it offers opportunity for inspiration and just that creative input. I appreciate that very much.
Ken Touchton.
Good morning from Northern Virginia, right outside of Washington, D.C. I enjoy the camaraderie of this group. Many of you are old friends, and with the emphasis on old, so part of my coming to this group every week is just to check on you and make sure you're still breathing. So, yeah, I always look forward to seeing your faces and hearing comments.
Amanda.
Hi, I'm Amanda. I'm in Richmond, Virginia. I enjoy being on here. One, I like meeting new people, and most of you are new or newer people to me that I've met since being on here. And it's also inspiring hearing from, all you creative people and seeing your work. And I've learned a lot and I've been inspired.
Well, thanks. Kerry, over there in Turkey.
Yeah, I'm Kerry. I'm in Istanbul. I've lived in Turkey for 18 years. And so I love getting together with you guys because I want some professional input and I love to kind of hear what's going on that side of the pond. But I love Stan's teaching on his blog. He's just a teacher at heart. And so I just love following him.
Well, thanks, Kerry. Greg.
Greg Thompson. I'm in Marietta, outside of Atlanta. You guys have all said it very well why we do this. It's the importance of community, the importance of mutual support. I'd like to applaud Stanley for bringing us all together. He's got a real heart for this thing, and I actually think this is a ministry that he's doing. So my thanks to Stanley for going through all the effort to do this.
Thank you. Gary Chapman.
Hey, I'm in Atlanta, and I like it because I get to see new work by photographers like Amanda, who's really been inspiring lately. So way to go, Amanda. And also seeing older inspirations like Ken Touchton. He was one of my heroes when I was early on in my career. I used to look at his work and think, man, I want to do that someday. So thanks to both of you and all of you.
You do it
Thanks.
well.
Hey, Barry, can you unmute yourself and tell us about yourself and what you do, as well as maybe why you want to come in and listen to us?
Hey, Stanley, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
I'm driving down 85, and I'm sorry, but this is the way I could come on your Zoom. And the people there that I know a lot of them, I probably know 5 of them. And right now I'm above Atlanta, and I'm going to meet a person I've got to look at his camera equipment because he's getting ready to travel out of the country.
Well, thanks for joining us. For those of you who don't know, Barry used to work for Nikon, and when Nikon moved out of Atlanta, Barry stayed, and Barry works on all kinds of cameras. He's repaired a bunch of our stuff before. Phil Wallis, tell us, say hello to us from where you are.
Yeah, I'm up in Chicagoland, and I think this group is very similar to what Southwestern was for a lot of us. It was that time of being able to recharge a little bit, to step back, take a little bit of a breath. I know when I can make it, and every week here, it's like the one meeting that I'm not stuck in a meeting. That it's, you know, it's important to me to be able to recharge a little bit with that, and to see, you know, inspiration, like people have said, and to see some familiar faces and that kind of stuff too.
Alan Hood.
Okay, I'm on the road as well. I'm just heading down to the coast. I live in in Alberta, central Alberta, and I just feel inspired by just seeing the work of everybody, hearing your comments, like how insightful, the motivations, the things that really drive our hearts. I really feel one with the group in terms of just seeing the work and how you really try to make a difference in the world. That really touches my heart. So I really want to listen to what's being said and be a good listener. So thanks for that.
Thanks, Alan. All I have is 813-785-8660. Who would that be?
Stanley, this is Gil, and I am crushed you don't memorize my phone number. Just, you know.
Hey, Gil. Gil Williams.
Hey, guys. I am in Lakeland, Florida. I call it the outback of Florida, and I am driving down the road because I had errands I'm trying to get things done. But I don't even know the question, but I'm just glad to be here and need some inspiration and some encouragement, because it seems like last couple of weeks I've hit a dead spot. I'm tired, worn out, and the other side is, you know, my list of chores to do is not stopped. I'm just busy as I can be. But I'm too extroverted to keep going on dead batteries, and I need to hear you guys talk. So, knowing Stanley, I know y'all will talk a lot. Anyway, it's good to be here, and I will mute myself before I say something I get really in trouble for.
Wally, this is your first time joining us. Tell us about yourself.
Well, I first have to find the unmute button. Well, what do you want to know? I'm a big guy with a round face with glasses, originally from South Africa. And I'm doing good.
You used to hang out with the Bang Bang Club, right? Down in South Africa?
That's a long time ago. I knew Ken Westerbrook and Kevin Carter pretty well.
Well, thanks for joining us. I just wanted you guys to start. I find that most people are looking for a group to connect with. They're also looking for a place to feel safe that they can just share. And I think this has become that for people that have joined here. And with all the divisiveness that's in our country, I'm just glad, or in the world in general, that we can come together and listen to each other and get inspired. And I'll never forget the one time that Bill Allard, I was up at the main workshop, and this guy, I was standing next to him, and I forgot who else was talking, but a guy walks up to him and says, you know, I came here and you really made a huge difference in my inspiration and got me to go, you know, to be able to go back and do more work. And as the guy left, Bill says, yeah, we all need one of these about every 3 months. So I hope this is inspirational for you. So today we have a team that's decided to do this together. So that way they can share the blame or share the glory. So we've got Bill and Gibbs. I'll let them take over from here.
Okay. All right. This is actually a project that Gibbs and I worked on for some time actually started back in the day when my hair was brown and Gibbs didn't know what Lyme disease was. So it's been quite a while. And it all started out with, let me get my screen up here. There we go. Come on, baby. I may have to fiddle with this a little bit. I'm not getting my screen to respond. Let me reopen it. Okay, there we go. All right, there we go. And it all began with this little card that Gibbs shared with me one day, and I don't know. He'll tell you about how it came into being.
Yeah, I just want to preface this presentation by saying this isn't anything revelatory. I didn't reinvent the mousetrap or invent the internet. So for all you who are looking for a wild and crazy photographic development, you may be disappointed. But this was actually born out of my experience shooting picture stories. And picture stories are sort of a lost thing these days, although some of the the major papers still do them. They still have the space where they can provide it. But essentially a picture story is being able to encapsulate the coverage of an event or a documentary with pictures and how they flow. And I had the opportunity in Indiana, the small paper there, back in 1986, to shoot, write, lay out, and design my own picture pages. And so that made me very aware of the whole editing process, but also the power of each individual picture which was going to be placed in there. And so I just wrote some things down, but this is a very simple creative tool that I developed. I actually first printed this out using a dot matrix printer, and I think that Bill may have the dot matrix printer version that so it goes back a ways. But the whole thing with picture stories is that you want fluency, you want visual fluency. Just like writers use words to tell the story, well, we have the opportunity to tell our story visually, but we want fluency with what we're saying. We want a good vocabulary, a good visual vocabulary. And at the same time, we really want to avoid visual redundancy, because there's nothing worse than you go through an article and you see the same word repeated twice in a sentence because an editor didn't catch that, and so it goes to print that way. Well, the same thing with photography. Visual redundancy, especially when you're doing a story, it just really brings down the impact of the story. So this is an opportunity. This was my way of kind of stimulating creativity, reminding myself, at times where I'd get the photographer's version of writer's cramp, to think a little bit outside the box. And so let me just see if there's anything else I got to say. So basically, I shared this at a journalism conference almost 20 years ago, and Bill was there and some other friends were there as faculty members, and so I handed out laminated copies of this, and this is where it went. So,
And I threw it in my bag and kept it around and looked at it from time to time, and then I started teaching out in University of Nations YWAM school out in Kona, Hawaii, along with Gary and Stanley. And I'd go out there for a week on photojournalism and storytelling. And one of the comments I kept hearing from the students over and over the first year I was out there was, well, I know what I want, but I can't get it, and it kind of gave me the idea, well, I thought about this little card. And so the next year I went out and I printed up a bunch of them and laminated them and I handed them out to the students. And I'm a little slow figuring things out. So, I just handed it out and talked about what these different things were, but I didn't show them anything, So then I asked Gibbs to come in and I said, hey, do some images and we'll Skype you in. And that worked real well. And then I started adding more images to it. Other photographers that I worked with and students, at Kona that had, done some exceptional work and had some beautiful images. And so we began taking a look at them in terms of, these, how many elements are there, Gibbs? 13 or something?
I had 15 elements. 15,
okay. And the first one is light.
Best place you can think of is probably that other one. Is that got a sign on it? I don't know. So how you doing?
Go ahead, Gibbs. Tell us.
This is a shot I just took at Black Rock Mountain State Park in Georgia, and you've seen shots similar to this before. The idea isn't really so much to call attention to myself or my work. It's just to stimulate thought and creativity at times where it's, we're struggling with it. And so I just like the compression associated with using a long lens at, this particular mountainous site.
Yeah, and I love it. Just the layering and the different light on each layer, I think is just beautiful. This is a shot out of Hawaii. So many times we do take sunset photos, and that's what this is, but tried to step back and rather than just taking the sun going down beneath the ocean, look for something different. This is a photo that Justin Veneman took. And I know most of you know Jim Veneman, or many of you do, and this is his son. And he was with us at the International Mission Board for 2 years and on his assignment in obviously Paris. This is one of came out of that. I love the light in this also. And then the final one is from Mark Hooks, and just a reminder that we not only use natural light, but we also use artificial light. Go Gibbs.
Yeah, I've got 4 sons, and 3 of them were in the military, and this takes place at boot camp graduation on Paris Island, and one of the officers there, his hat flew off from a breeze, and so I got that moment where he picked it up.
Yeah, one of the most difficult things I think that initially the students deal with is moments. Recognize them, putting yourself in a position to take advantage of them, looking at them as in terms of how they would fit into your story. This is one of mine. I took this on a bus, obviously, and it's traveling down the north coast of Cuba, a little area that they call their Little Haiti. It's an area of pretty much destitute former sugarcane workers. The sugarcane has been mechanized, and all of a sudden you've got this poor community or population living down there. I rode on this bus for 4 hours, and it was interesting in that when it took on more people than it could handle in the seats, they would pull out these folding chairs and stick them in the aisle. So when I saw that, I grabbed one of the folding chairs and turned it around. And everybody thought that was pretty funny, but they gradually began to forget about me. And these are 2 old friends kind of catching up on the neighborhood gossip. This was done by one of the students out at Kona, Linnea Kalinowski, and she really struggled with finding a story, and that's part of what we require them to do. They have to find their own story. We have to prove it. Then they have to go out and execute. And she did a story on a woman who does therapy with horses, for disadvantaged kids or disabled kids with disabilities. And I thought it was a good reminder, that interactions and moments aren't just between people.
Hey, Bill, if I can just add something too. This whole thing about moments, I think for me, working for several newspapers over the years and then graduate school and then coming to the mission board and then freelancing a couple times in my life, one of the moments was really at the top of this 15 item list for me. And so many times I was almost, how should I say this, hyper-focused on moments to the exclusion of other things. And so, the other thing is too, that for moments, it's not a matter of if they're going to occur, it's just when they're going to occur. And I thought it was interesting how you brought up how you changed your physical posture in preparation for a moment. And likewise, with that hat that fell to the ground, I was actually pre-focusing on those guys and isolating in anticipation of something. And I didn't know what it was, but I was just hoping that something would occur. So, all of these 15 things that we're going to show you, again, it's not so much to bring attention to us, it's just for us to continue to think along that same, this componentry and think, how can I add these things in or be thinking about these things while I'm on assignment.
Justin Vinneman took this, and it is, let's see if I can remember where it is, Sri Lanka. And it's a World Hunger Project, and out of the World Hunger Project came this little bakery. And I think the guy gives 10 or 20% of everything he makes to the poor, either in form of cash or often the bakery goods. But you see the layers within the photograph, from the doors to the opening, the table and the man and his oven behind him. One of mine, this was in Bosnia towards the end of the Troubles there. I don't know, some of you remember there was a population of about 7,000 from Srebrenica that were slaughtered by the Serbs. These blonde-haired, blue-eyed Muslim children are the remains of that community, and they built a little, or took over an area and built a little settlement for them. The water here, I was about to pass by it, and one of the kids kind of grabbed my shirt and motioned for me to try the water. It is like drinking a bottle of Perrier. Sonia Singh is a photographer in California. Some of you may know her from what's now the Southeastern Conference. And she primarily shoots music groups, and this is David Grohl, the Foo Fighters. And he had broken his foot and wasn't able to jump around the stage like he usually does. And they built a little throne for him out of the guitar necks and whatnot. And I just love this moment that she captured.
Can we hold that just there a second, Bill?
Sure.
So I want to go back to that whole meaning of the word dominant. For many of you, it doesn't need an explanation, but actually that dominant image originates with the picture story context. And the whole purpose of a dominant is to have an image which will tell the overall theme of what it is you're trying to tell. And then you're going to build in other sub-images which will come alongside in harmony with that one dominant image, work together to tell the complete story. And so in one sense of the word, it's almost like a headline. It's the overall image, which alone by itself could give you context, subject matter, who, what, where, when, and why. And so when Bill and I were looking at this picture, Bill told me the story, and that's very important because, you know, the words are going to work in conjunction with the picture. You know, if you're working with writers or you're working with someone who's eventually going to place this in context of the written word, you know, you want your picture to have those elements and that content that'll assist and work with it. And the guy's boot right here is very evident, and it's got great emotion to it. You know, it is a moment. It's a dominant with a moment as a moment too. So
continue on, Gibbs. This is actually a spread from the magazine that I was editor of.
Yeah, so this is for Commission Magazine, and Bill had sent me on assignment. This was a health clinic, and this was actually a dentist who, it's been a long time, so I got to go back in my memory bank here, but he volunteered his time at this clinic to help refugees, and this guy's getting ready to get a Novocaine shot. Now, this was shot on chrome, and I actually used a, you know, technical detail here, but actually used a bounce flash off the ceiling because with that transparency film, we didn't have the luxury of high ISO or ISO, wherever you want to call it, sensitivity for low light situations. So, you know, again, dominant image leads in with the story, and there's a moment there. It's a subtle moment with the eyes, you know, and the anticipation of the needle that he's about to receive.
And this is my wife, and behind her is Charles Shelton, and he has cut both of our hair for probably, he's a good friend now, and he's cut our hair for probably 25 years, and you know, just thought I'd slip an image of my wife in there. But yeah, taking a moment to do kind of a little personal mini story of Charles and working on Diane, and the rest of it was a lot of detail shots and whatnot, but this was, in my mind, the opener.
So this was there's a church in McDonough, Georgia. It's a cowboy church, it's called, and they were baptizing a new member there, and I found a chair. I thought I'm gonna need to get up high to kind of separate this, and I still want to tell the overall. I want to get an overall, you know, if this was to be part of a picture package. And I always assume, I know it's dangerous, you know, assumption is the mother of goof up, but I actually do assume that my pictures are going to be used as part of an overall package. You know, maybe not the way that I would want them to. In this case, they actually were. But, you know, I think continually about those 15 items. Now, can I recite them by heart? No, I can't recite them by heart. And, you know, now more than ever, they're mostly intuitive. But the point is that, again, I'm looking for that overall shot right now to try to just to back off and not getting close, but just give a sense of place and origin.
I don't know what you guys, Mark Sandlin once described my shooting style as 7 inches, 9 inches, and 11 inches. And I have a tendency to get in so much into the weeds that I have to remind myself to step back and give context for the story.
Could that be also for, I mean, another word like setting the scene?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, yeah. I know the thing I like about Gibbs' little card is he, you know, it's a single word, so that's easy to remember. This is a sculpture. I've been involved with a gallery in downtown Richmond for a number of years now. And this is a sculpture that was exhibiting, and these are her models. Most of her sculptures are like, 14, 16 feet tall, but these are the models that she works for. And tried to give a sense of kind of overall of you see her work scattered about, the people that have come in for the artist talk, and of course, to set that, we use this on a website for the theater. Justin Veneman again, and Justin's got a number of images in here. I love the way Justin sees detail. I don't know that I would have seen that. The cracked feet, the hat between the legs. I don't know that I would have seen that at all, but Justin did. Mark Hooks, it's an African-American pastor. Just a detail of his hand in his ring. This is Jim Veneman, and this looks like it might be one of those images that would kind of be out of the tray, but the story that he was doing this for was child abuse. So he was purposely hiding identity and that sort of thing, and yet looking for this, to me, this emotional moment. Loose images are us editors. Love having some loose images to work with. Our designers love having, because there's places that they can put a headline and type into, and it's just pulling back a little ways to give them a little more context of I think someone just said setting the scene in a way, and perhaps introducing the story. Getting close. Again, Justin, he was somewhere in Kenya, and Justin's got a real eye for for these interesting images. Mark Hooks again, man in prayer. By using getting in tight and close, and you get the bokeh of the man in the background. He gives us a different image, something that will attract the eye and draw the reader into it.
Hey, Bill, if I can just say something too. I could actually take some creative license and add a 16th item here. 15 wasn't enough. But basically what we're doing is employing the use of contrast. So, when we have loose and overall, and then we have tight and detail, we're using contrast, far away and then close to as a creative element.
High angle.
Yeah, so this is a Stanley Leary, Greg Thompson assignment for Chick-fil-A. This is before Chick-fil-A opened their store in New York City, and they used to have what was called Cow Appreciation Day, and they had this double-decker bus that Chick-fil-A employees got on, and they had a couple of cows up there, and just had my wide angle on at the time, and I loved the sense of flow and composition with it, the sense of whimsy, I guess. Looking down.
Yeah. Justin Veneman again, and this, I'm not sure exactly where this is. Oh yeah, I think I do know. Nah, never mind. It's obviously it is somewhere in the Muslim world, but I love the way that he used this. The interesting thing to me about this image, with the inclusion of the book, is so oftentimes when photographers shoot children, they shoot them from standing, their position, their height. So everything is with the you're looking down at the children rather than getting on their level. And yet Justin, with the inclusion of this book, takes us away from that and adds, again, context to the image. This was, you remember Occupy Wall Street, where we had a group, Occupy Washington, and I went up and spent some time with them. And I purposely, chose this angle because these folks were looked down on by a number of people, and it would, they had the sign up, honk if you're for the people, and not many cars honked. And when the cars would go by and not honk, they'd say, well, there goes one of the 5%, meaning the wealthiest. And they celebrated when a car honked. And getting down at a low level just kind of elevates, in my mind, elevates an individual. Gives them a sense of I don't know, greater respect than they normally get. Justin again, this is a hunger relief effort after a earthquake in Pakistan. Looking for something that was not, not typical. Verticals. I did a story on street people in India, and this is Abram, and Abram lives on the street, has been for some time. He has just recently had a stroke, and he can only cut one side of his beard. You can't get the other one. I was doing a story on a fellow that is kind of a Mother Teresa and has a ministry to these folks, and he would wander through the city, and he said there would come a point in time when Abram could no longer fend for himself, and that's when he would take them into what he calls House of Hope. Mark Hooks, looking at Washington, D.C., the Washington Monument through pillars of the Lincoln Memorial. Horizontal.
Yeah, so this was, at the time our football stadium was the Georgia Dome. This was before it was imploded. And I've got 4 sons, and they were very young at the time. We went to an event at the convention center, and as we came outside, this window washer was washing the glass on the front of the Georgia Dome.
A student, John Jansonius, out in Kona again, and I just love John taking a portrait, but doing it, horizontal with his grandchildren and his daughter.
Yeah, and if I can just add one final thing about the vertical segment here. So I'm beckoning back to my picture story days again, but I can remember just the challenge sometimes of forcing myself to shoot vertical. The human form lends itself well to a vertical orientation because people are, tall and they have a vertical stature, but, many times we don't think about shooting groups of people or other things. And I was just thinking about Gary Chapman's presentation where, eventually they harvested a vertical out of a horizontal. So for me, at least, there's always a challenge to shoot vertically for stuff that isn't just people, single portrait shots, but other things too, because designers can use that vertical. And plus it just forces us to do things which might not come naturally.
Artsy. And I love the story behind this photo, Gibbs.
Well, thanks. My dad used to live in Cape Cod. After my mom died, he remarried and married someone from that area. But I was actually, this is taken with a Canon G10. It was just a little point and shoot. And I decided to walk the beaches of Cape Cod, and this kind of unfolded before me. And the cool thing about this was that, you know, you talk about photos and unanticipated future use, but this actually inspired a former percussion student of my dad to compose a piece based upon this picture, and then he sent it. He composed it over the internet, uploaded the song, and then sent it to me so I could download it. And it was just a fun experience.
Stopped in to see an artist friend of mine, and you know, I love talking with people in different disciplines, and I find a lot of carryover, just kind of like Gibbs did with the birds. But I'm watching my friend Chris paint. He's very successful, you know, but the thing that attracted my eye was not the painting he was doing, but you know, the palette where he mixed these paints, you know. And I think he was a little offended when I said, you know, you gotta frame this and put this in the exhibit. You know? But it survived. Our friendship survived. Take risks.
Yeah, so this is taken in the Dominican Republic. I was using a camera at the time that wasn't really capable of decent shots above a certain ISO range. And I had a friend of mine, he had a headlamp. And I said, hey, Richard, can you hold this on so that it'll project light on Ramon's face? And Ramon is, he's actually from Haiti, so he's a lot darker complected than the people from, you know, the Dominican side of the island. And so that presented some technical challenges of its own. But it certainly was a risk. I really didn't have a lot of hope for it turning out. But at the same time, I thought, well, I'm there. It's part of my reportage because I was hired to do this assignment and need to take the risk of taking it. So.
I've had a long-term project on children exposed to radiation from the Chernobyl nuclear disaster. And the little boy in the center there is Sergey, and he was the focus of one of the stories that I did. Sergey had leukemia. He survived. He's now a strapping farmer down in Belarus. And he is leaving his room with his dad to go do, I don't remember, more testing or you know, a treatment or something. But you walk out in these hallways and there's no windows, and these long hallways are lit with maybe a 40 watt light bulb, and this is filmed. And I just kind of made myself as small as I could and took a number of long exposures with really no hopes that this image would come out. I showed this. Jim Veneman teaches photography up at you know, a center in Tennessee, and I was up with him one time and showed this image, and one of the students said, well, if I had that image, I would have thrown it away. Yeah. And I said, well, you know, the interesting thing is, I don't think there's one image that has been published more of mine that has been published more than this one. Experiment. It's a block party at my church, and you know, one of the kids at the church was, actually she wasn't at the church at the time. She was from the neighborhood, and she kept putting hula hoops around them and trying to see how many hoops she could spin at the same time. And at the same time, I was trying to see if I could find some way in which to show the motion of the hoops and capture the rest of the image still. And then the last one is done by a guy, Jacob Gonzalez, and he was one of Jim Veneman's students in California. And can anybody, except Gibbs, can anybody tell me how this image was produced?
Steel wool.
Oh, Amanda.
Yeah, on a coat hanger.
I need steel wool.
Put your money on her, I'm telling you.
So how do they
Leave
do
it to
it
the
with
teacher.
steel wool? Do they dip it in gas or something?
No, I didn't know this, but steel wool is very flammable. And what he did is he put it in a little basket and attached a metal basket and attached a string to it, and had one of his buddies swing it around his head, and then of course he took a long exposure with it. But,
I just love this shot. I think this really encapsulates, what we've been trying to say about the experiment, take risks, and artsy. And this would make a great dominant image too. It would fill a lot of categories. Actually, it's just a wonderful image. You got warm and cool going on there. The warmth of the ignited steel wool with the cool of the blue sky. There's just so many different things going on with this that make it a great ender.
okay, well, that's it, guys. Any questions or comments?
What you just mentioned gives. I was going through a list just the other day of a similar type of list, but had more things like composition and rule of thirds and this sort of thing. But he was saying if you have a photo with one of these elements in it, you've got a good photo. If you have a photo with two of these elements, you've got a great photo. If you have three of these elements, you've got portfolio. So I thought that was interesting. Think in terms of just even more than one element.
Yeah, exactly.
Am I back with you guys, or am I still sharing?
No, you're back.
You're good.
Okay, all right.
Stanley, we can't hear you. Still can't hear you. No?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
We can hear you now.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I did that. I accidentally turned it off. What other kind of questions you guys have? How many of you feel like when you really are trying to get better, it's really going back to the basics, not necessarily something brand new?
Yeah, one of the things that years ago, Stanley talks a lot about, shoot, the mind's a terrible thing to waste. Don Rutledge. And I remember one of the times I met Don, I think it was at a flying short course somewhere. And we're talking about where we were going to go and what we were going to go see. And I was going to go look at something, new with the advent of the internet at that time. And Don was going to a class on the fundamentals of photography. And I thought, man, this guy, why? This guy knows it all. Why would he do that? And I asked him, and he said, it never hurts to go back and remind yourself, the basics of your craft.
Yeah, I teach and use a very similar list, and I think what it helps me to do is to remember them to stay out of ruts. It helps me to keep out of ruts.
Well, Stanley and I have talked about this. One of the advantages of being old is you see things, patterns over time in your life. And I think it applies not only in photography, I think it applies in most things in life, is when you get off track or when you need something new, you don't win, whether it be in sports or anything else, with trick plays you drop in the dirt. It's always fundamentals. Whether you're talking about your spiritual life, whether you're talking about your family life, whether you're talking about your marriage, whether you're talking about photography, whether you're talking about your writing, whether you're talking about anything, I find that the people who do the fundamentals better than everybody else are the successful people. It's not the people drawing up trick plays. And you can't do a trick play unless you have the basis and the foundation of the fundamentals. So I think I'm really inspired by that story Bill just told about Don Rutledge going back for a fundamentals course, because I'm sitting here taking notes on this list. I mean, I know this. I've never seen this list presented this way, but we all know this stuff. But man, how often do we actually employ it? And to me, that's inspiring just to have this list and to remind myself, okay, check, okay, am I doing this right, etc. So just to get a little philosophical here during the pandemic, I think adherence to fundamentals and everything is a pretty good life practice.
Yeah. Gibbs and I were talking about this, and when I was younger, I was an athlete, and then I did some coaching for my daughters when they came up, and the thing I learned from my coach was every year we'd get out on the field and we'd go through the fundamentals before we begin to even look at plays, and also. I think it was Mark Sandlin who used to say a lot that I always picked up on. He says you gotta know the rules before you can break them.
I want to be sure everybody meets another person who joined us. Terry Dryden, can you tell us about yourself and where you're located right now? Or can you do that?
Trying to get this thing turned on here. Okay. Well, howdy. Well, I'm Terry Dryden. I'm a staff photojournalist with GFA World. And right now I'm just editing stuff that's been shot over the last year or so. Due to lockdowns, haven't been able to do any international travel, so everything I've done lately has been local. But I kind of joined this late, so kind of missing. I really like the thoughts about the fundamentals. That's true in just about every aspect of our lives.
Yeah, another good element here is that that I've appreciated. Phil Wallis and I have done a lot of assignments together over the years, domestically and internationally, and we'd be shooting at the same place, same situation. We come back with images. And I'd look at some of the stuff. I said, Phil, where was it? Where'd you take this? And he says, right, the same place. And I come from kind of a story background. He kind of has more of a graphic arts background, but we'd be same spots and two different guys seeing things completely differently, and I learned a lot from that. Helped me to just kind of expand my horizons about over that. But I appreciated that, being able to recognize that I see things and other people see things differently, and it works.
You also like the really wide lenses.
Wide and close, yeah. Wide and close, and he gets into a lot of detail, a lot of graphic detail and design elements, color and angles and things like that in his pictures. So, but we'd be in exactly that same spot shooting some of the same stuff.
Complementary.
For sure.
That's something I enjoy about teaching, because I teach high school photography, and I think one of the most interesting things is I've done the same or similar assignments for 7 years now, and there's 20 to 40 kids doing the same assignment, and rarely do I ever see the same picture, which is kind of eye-opening, as far as everyone seeing differently and interpreting things differently, and I think that's one of the beauties of photography. So I appreciate your story saying that, because it's definitely true.
I think what you just said is pretty profound, actually, because many times we rely on the next greatest location or the next greatest event in front of us. And so one of the challenges that I think everyone will face one time or another is something that we've already seen before or experienced before, or doesn't meet that criteria of interesting. And yet out of that, we've got it's almost like we've been hired to do a mining job. We've got to mine from that ore of visual content, something which is different than we've ever seen before. And, you know, people who have those day-to-day responsibilities where visual redundancy could occur in their visual content and reportage are going to be challenged. And I think that's all of us to some extent, if that makes sense.
I was reminded when you were talking about that of two different people who spoke into my life, and one of them was Tom Kennedy, and it wasn't a good speaking into my moment at that time. I was showing him my portfolio. He looked at everything, and I thought I had my best year ever in my career, which it probably was. But he looked at it and goes, "It's good professional work, but I'm not really surprised here." He says, "I need some surprises." And I didn't know I didn't know how to get to that. And it just hit me on a wall. So I always thought that you're looking for a better image all the time. Then the second person who spoke in and opened up the door for me to do even better work was Dave Black. When he was speaking at Southwestern, made the comment, "It's not about being better, it's about seeing something different." And we've all been kind of dancing around that. And what that freed me up was I always was trying to get a more profound image. And sometimes it's just like John Walton and Phil were talking, it's about just seeing it a little bit different. And the best thing I think was when Bill Fortney made the comment when he thought about doing his book From 500 Feet Above America. He'd always start the talk with, "I've seen the whole world always at my height, and that's where I start." And we've all know that when we encourage photographers, don't shoot from your standing height, get low, get high. So I think that those are things that make a huge difference, is being different, and not necessarily does it have to be profound. It just has to be different.
And one of the things that I've thought over the years and stuff, when you're feeling like you're not fresh or anything, or you're just kicking out the same stuff, is find the lens that you use the least in your bag and force yourself to go out and just use that lens.
I heard that from Ken Touchton a few times.
One of my pet peeves is, and I'm not going to say who the photographer is. He's well known. You all know him. He's fairly famous. I haven't worked with him in about 15 years, but I used to hire him when I was at IBM. But he has a saying that I think just drives me crazy. He says, if you want to, he shoots for National Geographic and everybody. He said, if you want to take better pictures, stand in front of more interesting stuff. And he's obviously promoting travel and National Geographic and all that stuff, but that phrase just drives me crazy. If you want to take better photographs, stand in front of more interesting stuff. I mean, that flies in the face of everything we've been talking about the last 45 minutes. And he's a terrific photographer, a good guy, but that just drives me nuts when he says that. So I just throw that out as as a cranky old man in quarantine. I don't know how you guys feel about that statement, but it drives me nuts.
I think it's the difference between those who are in the business of doing this and those who are in the ministry of doing photography. We see things that are the ordinary because that's the story in the ministry side of it, whereas he's trying to find something to sell and profit from.
He's also trying to promote National Geographic trips.
Yeah.
I don't mean to throw him under the bus, but he's just when he says that, it drives me nuts.
I remember a few times where I've been with some of you guys, and I think James Dockery decided after a whole week in Nicaragua, we're seeing everything else, and the guy he wanted to go photograph and memorialize for himself was the cook who's been cooking for us. And so all of a sudden, James disappears for a good hour or so, and he's over there lighting and making this guy look really cool. And I think it's instead of being different, it's about honoring those people that have changed your life in such a way that you honor them by making that extra effort. And I think most of you guys, that's what I see most of you doing more than anything else, is the people who go out and meet somebody and they made an impact on your life and you want to transfer that to the audience somehow. and you may use these 15 things to trying to find that one angle or that one look. But I think it's really cool that all of you, how many people have a similar list that Bill and Gibbs have used? Do people all work from a list? Oh, Julie's got it holding up.
I thought I had that list in my head, but I'm realizing now that may have been a lazy thing. So I think laminating this and putting it in my bag is going to be the new thing I'm going to do. I don't have the list as well as I thought I did.
We may all become card-carrying members of this club.
Well, I've got a few laminated ones already, and if you'll send me your mailing address, I'll drop one in the mail to you.
That'd be great. Thank you. And I'll send you free chicken, Bill.
Anytime. I've had some free chicken from you, and it's been a while.
So how many of you teach photography? Raise your hand up so everybody can see, and use something similar to this when you teach people. Yeah, I figured there are a few people here.
In the past, yeah.
And so, and one person we had, I wasn't there when he spoke, but they had the wingless basketball coach speak to Chick-fil-A, and John, and he would, well, I can't think of his name. I'm going blank.
John Wooden. It was my first one of those meetings.
And he started everything with their very first practice on the fundamentals. And can you imagine being an all-star athlete all over the country, top recruited guys, and the first thing that you sit down with him to learn is how to put on your socks and shoes and tie them. So I'm reminded that the greatest of those are those who do the details. And I think when I think of Christ, who first thing he did was get on his knees and wash somebody's feet, and that's where we start. And then I hear of John Wooden doing almost the same, starting with the feet, very simple stuff. Hopefully, I think this is very cool stuff that Bill and Gibbs has shared.
There's a nuance to all of this too, Stanley. And John Wooden always explained, you know, the why behind the socks and the shoes. He would explain to his players is, if you put your socks on correctly, if you tie your shoes correctly, you're not going to get a blister. And you're one of my key guys. And if you get a blister in the Final Four or in the playoffs, you're going to hurt your team. You're going to hurt the ability for us to succeed. So I think as a leader of a team in my last couple of jobs, I try to explain to people the why of what it is we're doing. Why are we doing this? Why are we focused? I love the way you guys presented it today with some tangible examples to show us the power of following this list. And so I think understanding the why of the fundamentals, why are you spending all those hours in the weight room? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? I think are really important. And I think that's a nuance that I try to convey to whoever I'm working with is, look, this is the way we do it, and here's the why. And I'm just looking at the list too, as a writer and as an editor. I could adapt this list of 15 very easily to teaching my editors, my writers, my communications consultants. I mean, there's wisdom in here that applies not only to photography. So thank you guys for doing this.
Are there any other comments here?
I know. Really,
yeah, go ahead.
My computer froze. I think talking about why is really, really important. And I appreciate that. That's actually with my photo classes, the very first class I have with them, we spend almost the entire class going over, my lesson's called Why Photography. And so rather than starting with some of the fundamentals, we start with why we actually do photography. And we go over that first, because I think if we know why we're photographing, like, you know, for specific stories or just in general, I think we'll end up with a better end product.
Yeah, that's very wise, Amanda. I'm really glad to hear you say that, because I find that the teaching and the instruction in why is one of the greatest failings in corporate America and teamwork and everything like that. Just people don't take the time to do that. So hats off to you for doing that.
Yeah, and if I can just say something about the why thing too, because, you know, the 5 W's, who, what, where, when, and why. I'm the why guy. And one of the things that was really drummed in and instilled in me in my, in the early part of my career was being able to have credibility and communication with word people and people who wrote for a living, because many times a lot of photojournalists, even though they're called photojournalists, don't write. And so they're almost looked down upon as second-class citizens. You know, oh, they just pulling an art moment out of their rear end. Sorry. But, you know, the more that you can articulate your creativity and the thinking process and what it is you're trying to convey with your story, the better that you'll mesh with word people who you're going to companion with out in the field. That's been my experience, at least. So.
Well, it's my goal that everybody stop thinking of themselves as picture people, word people, etc., and everybody start thinking of yourself as communications people, storytellers, who then, how do we all blend our gifts together? So I agree with you, Gibbs. I think that's really key.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, for me, you know, I do write, and so I've been on both ends of it. Yeah, Ken Touchton is here, and Ken and I have done a number of stories together, and the dialogue and the interaction between the two of us. Have you seen this? Have you done that? Or is what's happening here? Do we have that? You know, it's iron sharpening iron. You know, and you get a better story. You know, something that people can grasp and is tangible and draws them in. You know. So I've always appreciated, and I'll be honest with you, they're few. You know, Ken is one. You know, and you know, I've been fortunate as a photographer to work with some writers who are the same way. You know, who would say to me, "You really need to watch this guy. You really need to watch him. Why?" You know, and the answer would come, and it would make an incredible difference in the story that we produced.
There's one guy, Jamie Windsor, who does a lot of videos online. It's fun to watch. He makes the comment, always consider what you want your image to say before you decide how to say it. And it's kind of the why of what we do. I think some people, I don't know how many of you notice this when you teach photography, you tell them we're going to go do a story. I think some people go out and they want to turn their recorder on and they click record and then they say, tell me your story, and expect it to happen. And then I see other people with cameras go out and they start clicking away, and they think after they get back, they'll pull a story out of that. And both of those things are a good way to fail. A few things I've noticed through the years was that the first time I went out with Don Rutledge, the only reason I mentioned him is because he was better than I was by a long shot. And when I went out with him, I thought we were going to take cameras, go in, and we were doing these little stories in between his commission stories. He'd do them for Black Star. So I would ride along and just carry his bag and watch, and then go to the car and get something if he needed it. So we'd ride up, go to a place, and I remember we were in Richmond, went to this guy who made handguns that people used on shooting range. And we left the camera bag in the car, went in, and a good 30 to 45 minutes after that is when we finally went and got the cameras and started the story. But Don talked to them and listened and learned what it was before he started to shoot, because you have to kind of know the story and then also verify what you thought was a story and find out that's what the editor told you is probably not accurate completely. So I think that's really good that we've learned these fundamentals, especially from you guys helping us remind us of this. And then at the same time, I think sometimes we're looking for these great things that somebody shares, a little insight that's going to be something new. And here we are finding out it's something old and just reminding us. Any other comments? Any
Stanley, I was
questions?
going to say, it dovetails with what you said about planning your story instead of just letting the camera roll. These fundamentals to me today are refreshing and inspirational again, just in capturing the image, because people go out without a plan and they're not thinking get high, get low, and thinking the artsy thing. They're just shooting, and then they so often think, oh, in post I will, add something, and I'll take the level up there, whether it's a preset or an action or just editing in post. And if you're good with these fundamentals, you don't need post. I mean, that should be what we're thinking, is I'm going to capture it right to begin with. So this was refreshing just to be reminded of that.
And just right along with what James is saying, one of the things, now I'm looking at this and, there's just not room for a 16th or a 17th. Be overwhelming. But, is the storyline. What is the storyline of what it is we're going to cover? I remember, this is a whole lot of years ago, but back in graduate school, we'd have these critiques, and guys would throw up some great images, but they didn't have a storyline. And, somebody would say, we got used to being able to parrot the professor's, interrogations during the critique. And the thing that we got used to saying was, well, to our friends and our fellow students, what is the storyline? And so I think that's very important that we articulate what the storyline is, because it'll help with, what's on this. The two will work in concert with one another. But this thing on its own really can't produce the storyline. As great as we fulfill all of these 15 things, if we don't know what the storyline is and we're not conveying that in our pictures, it's still great 15 items, but they're still not producing the storyline, if that makes sense.
And one last thing I thought was interesting, we always look at when we have our photo contest and all these things, we hire all the professionals to read and look at them. And I had a friend of mine who basically said the best persons to evaluate whether or not we're good storytellers is just people on the street. And the question wasn't, do you like the story or whatever, but the best question you can ask is, what did you learn from the story? What did it convey to you? And if they tell you what you're trying to convey, then you hit a home run. But if they didn't, you missed it. And it wasn't about going to the National Geographic editors. It wasn't about everything. It's just the people on the street that really know if you've communicated. And the cool thing for all of you is I enjoy this week every time coming together, because this is also energizes me to get to see all of you. I like to know about each of your own stories. And it's really cool to see that all of you are telling other people's stories. And I love to hear the stories you have. So I'm looking forward to next week when we can get somebody else to come in and tell us some stories as well. Any last comments from anybody? Well, thank you guys. I think we'll have this recorded. It'll be up. So if you missed part of it and came in late or whatever, we'll have it online. And thank you all for showing up. And I'll send out something hopefully next week to let you know what we have. And I'll probably ask one or two of you who haven't been here before to try to present. And we try to give enough time for you to finish your presentation, enough time for people to ask questions. And as you can see, we kind of go off on tangents. But the tangents usually all come back to some inspiration and things to make us all better at people in general and communicating with others. Thank you all for coming.
Thanks, Gibbs. Thank you, Bill. Appreciate it.
Great job.
See you guys.
Good job. Good job.
Take care.
Thank you.
Have a good week.
Y'all too.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Stanley.
Thank you. Thanks, Kerry, for Turkey.
Welcome. Turkey's open. Come on, visit.
Good to see you guys.
So long.
Okay. Bye.
Take care.
Yep.
Bye-bye, guys.